So, of course, we're all here for Amber Tamblyn and her new novel, Any Man. An outspoken critic of today's rape culture, Tamblyn wrote in a recent Glamour column that women can change the way women are talked about and treated. In her phenomenal debut novel, the actress, activist, and poet does just that. This book is told from the perspectives of the different men who have been attacked by an elusive female serial rapist named Maude. The police have few clues, the media have a stalled story, and both vent their frustration by questioning the victims' accounts. Eventually, worn down by the doubt, shame, and public exposure, Maude's victims unite and begin to heal by speaking out. She will be preceded this evening by Bradley Jameson, a freelance writer from Northern Virginia. And to learn a little bit more about Bradley, I'm going to turn it over to Amber.
Hi, you guys. Hello. Thank you so much for coming here. This is all I have left in my suitcase. And these stretchy pants. Wearing socks I've worn for 3 days straight. So if anyone has a washer dryer nearby, if you want me to come over afterwards, I'll buy us a bottle of bourbon and do laundry at your house. It's kind of one of those afternoons. Thank you for being here and for being a part of this conversation and this brief reading and conversation that I hope to give. But before, I just wanted to introduce Bradley. It's been such a pleasure for me on the road to meet local writers in every city that I've been in. And this is no different at all because I'm just so excited to see your work and see what you have to offer. So I'm just going to read Bradley's bio. Bradley Jameson is a freelance writer from Northern Virginia. When she was at Carnegie Mellon University to receive her degree in mathematics, she came down with multiple autoimmune illnesses along with Lyme disease. Having to refocus her life on getting better, she eventually started writing personal essays, which led to other writing roles. For now, she considers herself a cat wrangler. Me too. That is an interesting job to have. They always pee on me. Anyway, that's a different reading. She's a chronic illness advocate and a total geek. Okay, we share that too. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Bradley Jameson.
I call this Beta Fish Adventures, and it is in memory of my friend Pam. The first fish was a surprise Pam had brought into the office. She had gone that weekend with her grandson to get a beta fish from PetSmart and had decided that one would help spruce up the place. While the rest of us were certain this fish would be dead within the week, Pam was excited, and that made us excited. He was a royal blue color, and she named him Vera in relation to the company's name. She learned and did all the tasks required in taking care of a beta fish, as beta fish caregiver eventually became one of her many titles, and collecting them soon became one of our pet projects. It wasn't long after we got him when the first mishap occurred. We aren't entirely sure what went wrong, but after Pam cleaned Vera's bowl for the first time, she dumped him back in, and he went into shock. He turned ghost white and seemed doomed to swim on his left side forever. Miraculously, about 2 years later, he slowly regained his coloring and was somehow able to swim normally again. Even more surprisingly, he lasted another year after that. After this experience, we thought beta fish might be more resilient than expected. We were wrong. While we still liked Vera and showed off our little fish that could, we thought it might be nice to get a second fish. Not to be his friend, since they are fighting fish, but rather to live on the table adjacent to him. I named him Obi-Wan, also in reference to the company name, but also, Star Wars. Obi-Wan was not long for this world, and was one day found floating in his bowl. So naturally, we went out later that week and got Obi too. As it turned out, the Obies and the other beta fish we housed, as we once got up to 7, never lasted more than a few months. But Obi-5 decided he should go out in spectacular fashion. During a lunch break, one of the guys in the office looked into Obi-5's bowl and thought it was odd that he couldn't see him and gathered everyone around to figure out this predicament. Since they like to hide in their little castles, we thought he was probably just in there, but then we noticed food floating atop the bowl, which if you aren't familiar with fish, they often leave very few things uneaten. Then we noticed a stench we weren't used to. Unfortunately, there was no dead fish in sight. Eventually, one brave soul picked up the fish castle and stuck their finger up it until they felt a squish. Everyone heard it and started freaking out, and the whole castle was rushed to the nearest outdoor trash bin. After OB7 passed, we started to think that maybe, just maybe, PetSmart didn't have the best beta fish, though everyone seemed to think I should also stop naming them Obi, because at that point it was probably cursed. But Pam and I weren't quite ready to give up yet, so we looked up a nearby pet store that sold beta fish, thinking, these fish were different, cared for better, focus for the pet store. It took us an hour going in circles to find the tiny store that was supposedly only 20 minutes away. But when we got there, we were elated to find shelves of big, gorgeous betas right near the entrance. We picked the biggest one we could find and gave him the regal name of Prince, and then chose 2 others that appeared quite healthy. With all of the hassle it took to get there, we were sure that this time, these fish were going to last. Well, of course, we came in the next day to find the prince was dead. The other 2 were gone by the end of the week. Finally, we decided that maybe beta fish weren't going to be our thing after all, and perhaps we should focus on keeping the plants alive. It was an interesting few years while it lasted, and some of the best memories of Pam that I have, because to her it was never failure. She was always able to laugh at our bad luck and add it to her seemingly unending collection of funny stories. Thank you.
Thank you. Give it up again one more time for Bradley. Thank you, Bradley. I like your wit. I will do a slight bit of leaning. I'll do like a rock star. I think they do like this, right? This is like natural. Thank you guys for being here. And so for any of you who are maybe not familiar with this book, thank you for the lovely introduction and explanation of it. I think I'll just read a little section for you, and then I'll take any questions that you might have. It can pertain to the book, to writing, to the world, whatever you guys feel like asking. And I think maybe what I'll read today, I'm going to go through a section of a particular character in this novel. This novel follows several men who are sexually assaulted by a female serial rapist who identifies herself as Maude. I think I'll follow one of them today with a man named Donald Ellis. And I'll just read a few pieces from his story. Am I in a body? No body answers. Camilla rolls me in a wheelchair down a Listerine-reeking hospital hallway towards the elevator. It's easier this way, they tell us. It will be painful for me to walk for a few weeks. I can't lift my eyes to meet those of the nurses, patients, or doctors as I go, but I can feel them. I am a damaged relic leaving the museum for good. I stare at their shoes, patent leather, slip-ons, wedges, I think they call them sneakers, even high heels, all those better, happier feet. What would you like for dinner, Dawn? Camilla asks. Light talk is as good as any other way to begin my death sentence. Steak? Lasagna? All food is a last meal. Fish? Everything leads to my execution. I'll have the fish, please, and Camilla, my dear, can we swing by the bar on the way home? I think I left my body there. The elevator doors open and a woman and her husband step out, carrying flowers and balloons bearing the words, "Get well." She stops at the sight of me and halts her husband with a hand to his chest. I'm sorry, but are you Donald Ellis? No, ma'am, but I get that all the time. You must have mistaken me for a butcher's block. You must have mistaken me for a skinned deer. You must have mistaken me for some coward. Donald is no longer with us. Donald died reading a poem to a bullfighter. Donald was scratched to death by a peacock. Donald passed away trying to make love 200 meters under the ocean. Donald left this world chiseling turquoise out of rock with his bare hands. Donald's fingers bled to death. Donald swallowed 100 matches and rubbed his body against a volcano. He died instantly. Donald got into an argument with the moon and died instantly. Donald revealed how much he could love and died instantly. Donald met his friend for a beer after work and died instantly. Donald has to explain to his children what happened and will die instantly. Donald will touch his wife's thigh and die instantly. I just want to say, it's so awful what happened to you. You're like all over the news. But just like know that everyone is on your side and sending you prayers. Donald dies instantly. I'm so sorry to ask, but would you mind if I got a selfie with you? Later on, Donald goes home to feel a sort of complete disassociation from his physical body and emotional self, to the point in which he has these really sort of out-of-body, almost experimental thoughts about his own physical ideation. Then soon it's revealed on the news that another man has been assaulted. And what starts to happen is the media starts to smell blood, and there starts to be sort of a frenzy about it. And so reporters start to reach out to Donald. May 8th, 2016. Dear Mr. Ellis, my name is Marcia Broskov, and I'm a producer for the Melissa Hope Show. As you may know, Melissa is a legal commentator with the #1 current affairs talk show in the country. We think you are absolutely riveting and would have been following your story since your assault a few months ago. We are such huge fans. We'd love to bring you on the show to discuss your activism and your thoughts on your attacker. Let us know, and looking forward to hearing back from you. Best, Marcia. May 9th, 2016. Hi, Marcia. Thank you for reaching out. I haven't really done anything of this measure before, and I'm not sure I'm entirely comfortable going on a talk show at this time. I don't know, it's still hard for me to speak about it. I need to discuss it with my wife. I really don't want to go into the details of what happened that night. That's the main thing for me. I'd rather discuss the culture surrounding sexual assault and how few men report being assaulted, but also how few women are actually believed. That's what I'd rather talk about. Let me know what you think. Thanks, Donald. And P.S., out of curiosity, how did you get my email address? May 9th, 2016. Great to hear back from you, Donald. Why don't we just go ahead and confirm your participation, and you can always pull out if you need to. No pun intended. I find with these sorts of things, it's always better to get it on the books than decide later. We will, of course, understand if you change your mind. Yes, we can absolutely discuss the broader themes of society's role in rape culture and the issues facing men and women today. Regarding your email address, we called your daughter's school and someone there gave it to us. Hope that's okay. Best, Marcia. Later on, Maude reveals herself under one of the only ways she possibly can, which is under the name Maude on a dating site. And so everyone sort of flocks to her in this one space in order to try to get information or access to her in some way. Joshua, Dispatch, the Dispatch newspaper. Dear Maude, my name is Joshua Greenfield, and I'm a reporter with the Dispatch newspaper. In the event you ever check this OkCupid account again, we would love to get a statement or comment from you regarding your relationship with Jamar Sands, Donald Ellis, or Per O'Sullivan. Specifically, we would love to hear from you directly regarding your motives. Perhaps one of these men did something to you at some point. Anything you tell us will be printed verbatim. Looking forward to hearing from you, and thank you for considering this. Best, Joshua. Maude is offline. Good evening. I'm your host, Melissa Hope, and thank you for joining me on BCN's #1 primetime television talk show, covering all of America's most horrific stories and injustices right here on the Melissa Hope Show. The top story tonight, male sexual assault. As you know, this program led in an exclusive interview with Donald Ellis mere months after his assault and has continued to lead the charge with the most up-to-date information and coverage on this horrifying case as it continues to unfold, centering around a female serial rapist. Just wondering if anyone who did not intend to come to this reading just heard that and is like, what the fuck is going on in that corner of the room? Joining me tonight on the Hope panel, Brenda Lendowski, a forensic psychologist and former FBI investigator. Jennifer Sampson, a criminal defense attorney, and Meryl Pichette, social media critic and blogger at everythingmen.com. Meryl, break it down for me. How is Twitter reacting to all this uncertainty? What's the general consensus out there among the top voices in America? Give me their reactions. Did anyone watch @MelissaHope Show tonight? Coining the hashtag Maude to penetrate is a stroke of genius, a consensual, nonviolent stroke. Daniel Tosh. At Pulitzer Prize, please give @MelissaHope the big P for naming the lady who did bad things to some dudes. Fat Jew. Conflicted about hashtag Maude to penetrate. Why was this married father of two drinking with a random woman in the first place? Meghan McCain. False. Maude is not part animal, at least not that we know of. Snopes. Can a man be raped? Some say not possible. Join the Maude to penetrate debate tonight on Facebook Live. Facebook. Yes, men can get raped. There is no Maude to penetrate debate, only rape. Teen Vogue. Trust. Men cannot get raped. This is not possible. Someone is lying. Hate Maude to penetrate debate. Kanye West. My new album is written for the victims of Maude to penetrate. Donate to my Kickstarter album fund today. Amanda Palmer. Read Jonathan Safran Foer's new short story, Maude in the Medusa of a Man's Arousal, in our summer issue, The New Yorker. Maude's all, I'm not going out tonight. I'm just going to stay home, Netflix, and rape. Whitney Cummings. Join our panel of experts tonight to discuss the heated topics of male rape. Tonight on Fox News, Sean Hannity. We will be protesting outside Brown University today, where sinner Donald Ellis will be speaking about sexual assault, the Westboro Baptist Church. Don't worry, we are working with the greatest to catch Monster Maude! Exclamation point. Disgusting! Exclamation point. America has best, most amazing experts! Exclamation point. We all know who that is. You're in the right city. And that chapter goes on for a very, very particularly upsetting period of time, and involves a trans character by the name of Michael Parker, whose story is told solely through tweets, which is a very, an extremely upsetting reflection of how our society and how many of us feel like we are perhaps helping to amplify the story of someone else and perhaps harming in the process of that. But I will leave that to you to read if you choose to get the book. I'm going to end with a piece here, which is 10 years later, this woman has never been found. She has sort of lived at large in an amorphous way and sort of created, media and the world at large has created a mythology around her, who and exactly what she is. Donald Ellis becomes this sort of John Walsh type character. So somebody who is able to connect the men who have gone through this experience together, but is somebody who's also really able to speak truth to power in his own way. And he has a very well-known and beloved radio program. And so here is an op-ed that he writes in a paper called The Prospect Times. I'm going to have a drink of water. Nobody move. No breathing. The Prospect Times, an invocation by Donald Ellis. This is an opinion page, but what I'm here to say is not an opinion. It is an offering. It is a letting, a delayed release, an invitation to the beginning of who you are through the end of what you were. My name is Donald Ellis, and I am not a survivor of rape. I did not survive. I perished before pushing through. I had to end before I could begin again. My name is Donald Ellis, and I am not a victim of rape. I am an assault's legacy, an embassy of expirations. I am the remnant of memory, collateral debris. I am an earned epilogue. 10 years ago, I was having a beer with a friend after work, and a few hours later, I was violently assaulted and left for dead behind a dumpster. No. Worse. I was left for living. My assaulter wanted me to live through what I had experienced. It was a gesture of torture, a most excruciating gift. I became suicidal. I told myself I did not deserve love, my children, my wife. I was an isolation of shame, a pending avalanche. I was blood outside of its body. Many times I have asked myself what I could have done to protect myself that night. I asked myself if I had deserved this. I convinced myself that I did. And it wasn't hard to. I live in a country built on celebritizing its citizens' grief and amplifying stories of violence and assault for political gain, click counts, or television ratings. Let me be emphatically clear. They don't care about us. People who live through sexual assault are a crash on the side of the road, and the American media is nothing more than cars slowing down just long enough to take a peek, just long enough to take a picture before speeding off to their next fatality. We are a country that capitalizes on the fetishizing of felonies, a country that says innocent until proven guilty, even though the proving of assault is nearly impossible. Tell me how you prove coercion, how you prove the difference between being hunted and hit on, how you prove that your arms were held down, your body was touched, your life was threatened, if you told anyone. For people who have suffered violent sexual crimes, proof, the very act of proving, is more than just a burden. It is a boundless bearing, an eternity of futility. I'm not one for witchcraft, but I believe in the power of spells, in the potential of many voices speaking at once in order to finally be heard, to force change upon those who are unwilling to do the hard work to help us. So if you were once living like I was if you were once left for living like I was all those years ago, join me and say it with me out loud now. I am in a body. It is not the one I came here with, but it is the one I will leave here in. I will take care of it. It belongs to me now. My pain, I will take care of it. It belongs to me now. My heart, I will take care of it. It belongs to me now. My story, I will take care of it. It belongs to me now. I experienced death, but I am not a ceasing. These hands remain sorcerers. This mind contains many moons, pulling gravities. Every memory is an ocean, every remembrance a tide, and I have the right to recede, and I have the right to swell. And though I am estranged from the sun, I am a brightness lit from within. And with this voice, I cast out the shadows, my forced curse, my executioner's oath. I cast out the crime of me, my casualty. Silence, you must leave. Sadness, go. Surrender shame. Cruelty, quiet now. Only light now, flare now. Glow now, blaze now, radiance now, beam now, spark now, gleam now, grow now. I stand with you as you stand with me, amending before us and between us. This body is my own, it belongs to me now. My pain, I will take care of it. It belongs to me now. My heart, I will take care of it. It belongs to me now. My story, I will take care of it. It belongs to me now. Ending elapse, beginning come. Edward from the Dispatch newspaper. Hi, Maude. My name is Edward Altman, and I am a reporter for the Dispatch newspaper. A former journalist for the Dispatch by the name of Joshua Greenfield reached out to you for comment almost a decade ago, and while he no longer works for the paper, I wanted to circle back now that so much time has passed and see if you would like to give us a statement or comment regarding the recent allegations of Ezra Fisher, who came forward with a physical description of you, which has, of course, reopened the case. Is there anything you'd like to share with the public, Maude? Maude is offline. Maude is now online. Thank you. If anyone has any questions, you want to raise your hand, we'll bring the mic over. This gentleman back here.
Hi, Amber. That was amazing, by the way. I was wondering if this book could be adapted to a screenplay, and if so, would you cast yourself as Maude?
Would I cast myself to play Maude? I would cast Megan Fox. No, I love Megan. She's awesome. I've never met her. I don't know why I said that, but I think it's true. I think I love her. We're going to be together. We both have children. Okay, enough. No, I would never play Maude in a million years. Maude would have to be like a accumulation of all of the most horrifying women that ever terrified you, that terrified any man archetypically. So Maude would have to be somebody who was severely physically unattractive by whatever definition, anyone's definition, both on the inside and outside. She would have to be somebody that was truly a manifestation of all of humanity's fears about women. But some people there's been a lot of reaching out and talk about possibly doing a film of it. So the thought of that exhausts me. So if someone else wants to do it, I'm very happy with that idea. I have some thoughts about what would make a great movie, but don't have the time nor the energy. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Ari.
Hi, Ari.
I just must say I've been a fan of you since your Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants days.
Of course.
It's honestly awesome to hear you speak and read an excerpt of your book.
Awesome.
And anyway, it's a dream of mine. But so recently, I think it was at the beginning of this week, Brock Turner's lawyer came out and they're trying
Michelle.
to get that appeal. Yeah, with the whole outer course.
Oh, I saw that a couple weeks ago. I've been so out of it. I'm like, you guys, Donald Trump is the president of the United States. Breaking. I am very out of it. But I did see, and Michelle texted me about that.
Yes.
She and I have worked on some other things, including some consultation for this book as far as statistics. But I saw that, meaning like it's not rape if you're like grinding on someone's pants. Is that the idea?
Something to that effect.
Phew, man, the patriarchy's real. They are just inventing some fresh new ideas.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess like the fact that someone can say that, oh no, this is what this person intended to do.
Yeah.
Like, how does, obviously that's damaging to this conversation, to the entire Me Too movement.
So I have, I have compassion for Brock Turner. I don't have sympathy for him whatsoever. I understand that the situation is not necessarily about him in specific. Mm-hmm. It is about the culture in the term rape culture. Yeah. And no man can change unless we systematically change the culture in a larger sense. And that is a responsibility that belongs to all of us cumulatively. I think that is a really pathetic and sad way to try to get some credit back for his life. I'm sure he's struggling. At the same time, I think that it is true that a lot of people really don't, including women, don't really know what the definitions of rape are. I think that there are some understandings of it, and that it has to include penetration and, some other broader terminology, but that we really, even as a culture, have not decided on what the definitions will allow. And that's part of the problem. That's why a lot of the gray areas have become problematic because we don't talk about them enough. And it's my belief that the more we have dialogues, not just monologues where one person is talking, the more that we can have a reciprocity in conversation and in that dialogue, the more we can define what the definitions are. And in my opinion, those definitions need to be defined by the people who are experiencing those assaults, who are predominantly women, predominantly the trans community, and even in the non-binary communities as well. I think just anybody who has been an underrepresented or marginalized person has experienced it the most. So I think we have to have more conversations about what the definition is, and we have to help We have to help if we want to. Not all of us want to, and I have so much respect for that. Have no problem helping my cis white male friends understand what those definitions are. It'll make them better people. They still have to live out there in the world, so I want them to live as better people, not harming. So to me, it's really about explaining the definitions, and I think that is just sort of a shining example of how because we don't really understand it, terms like that are able to present themselves and exist as evidence.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I've been explaining the book to my husband as I've been reading, and it's been really interesting getting his feedback. He's like literally never had to put himself in the position where he's felt like he could be threatened. So like trying to get in the mindset of the male victims was difficult for him. So I'm wondering what other kind of feedback you've gotten from male readers of the book.
So I think one of the most interesting things, whenever I read the book out loud, I forget what gender I'm reading. I am lost in the experience. And I think that, men like your husband and, most men need to have that experience so that the experience of sexual violence, the pervasiveness of it, needs to become transferable. It needs to be understood on an all-chemical, physiological level, not just the sympathizing. There has to be like a deep-rooted connection to the empathy. And for me, that was one of the experiments of writing this book in first person, is that it forces the reader to become the voice of the person who's speaking in the book. And in that way, I hope he does consider reading it, because I think it really allows an open space for predominantly men to experience something that they haven't experienced before, which is to not just hear the story, but have the story be put on their physical selves. Have their bodies, their own physical bodies, become a part of the story, which I think has been a really lacking piece. And by that, please do not misunderstand me. I'm not saying that men should be sexually assaulted. I'm saying that the empathizing, the ability to have that empathic connection with those who have experienced it, to understand that the violence is not just the sexual violence, but all of the violences that come after the fact. Not being believed, all the stuff that Donald mentions, the coercion, the blackmail, the being threatened, the being sued into silence so that you have no money anymore and you can't even do anything, for defamation, for all of the things, losing friends, family, careers. That's all violence. That's all falls under the guise and the conversation that is never, ever discussed about sexual assault, probably up until the Me Too movement, in a very large way. So to me, the only way to be able to do that is for us to all be able to look at the lens through the shared experience and remember that sexual violence and sexual assault knows no gender, it knows no race, it knows no socioeconomical background. Certainly it does affect those more than others. That is absolutely a fact. But we have to remember it's still, no matter what, affects us all. And so the conversation must be broadened and it must be more difficult for us to have. So I always encourage men to read it. The ones who have come up and talked to me about it at events have either revealed stories themselves or have felt, I think, very connected to it. And I'm actually working on an op-ed about it for the Times, but I've talked a lot about its illumination for them, which is literally all I could ever ask for, is that.
Hi. I first wanted to say I think it's important to say I think the perpetuating the idea that there is a gray area in the definition of rape is something that perpetuates rape culture. But my question for you was, speaking of rape culture, is I think it's interesting to me that you wrote a book where the stories, I haven't read it admittedly, but the rapist, the person assaulting Maude, is a stranger. Whereas one of the facts, that is becoming more and more well known as we're more and more willing to talk about rape culture is the fact that in most cases, the survivor and the rapist, they know each other. So I'm curious, what led you to the choice to have it be that sort of stranger scenario?
So I'm curious, did you get that information from a Bustle article?
No, it just sounded like
I'm just curious
what
because
you
you haven't
were
read it,
reading.
so I'm curious how you know that it's a stranger to all these people.
I don't know. It's what
Okay.
it sounded like from the sections you read
Got
to
you.
me.
So someone actually did say that. That was not an accusation. I was just very curious because someone did say the same thing. And actually, this woman is connected to several of them, but this woman is not really in the book. The book is not about the assaulter. We don't really get any information about how she is connected to these people, and certainly one of them who is a child. And there is some information that's given there that makes it seem like perhaps she knew the family and she was a friend of the family's. So the piece that I read, yes, you're definitely right. In that character's instance, it is totally random, 100%, and that's a through line. But there are 5 other characters. And for me, it was very important to make sure that that everything was represented. So not only were different types of stories and sexual assaults represented, meaning everything from being drugged, everything from being talked into it and being unsure, every type of form you can think about, and then also the ways in which people grieve on the other side of that, which is always different for everyone. Some people don't say anything for generations, for decades. And then other times, people find a way to speak about it by through humor. I have a lot of friends that deal with it that way, inappropriate humor. There are definitely many different ways in which it's represented. Maude, if and when you read it, if you choose to read it, is a peripheral violence in the book. The mainstay of the violence in the book is about the media. It is an indictment of the culture that we live in, which helps to maintain, and I totally agree with you about the gray area, 100%, about how using that terminology. I use it because it's what people understand, and it's a way to access and be able to have conversations with people who aren't ready to know what things look like outside of the gray area yet. But to me, it was really important to have somebody whose violence was on the periphery so that her assault felt like less of a predator in the book than the media itself, and that the media starts to take over, and that Twitter and social media starts to feel more predatory than the actual person itself. So I hope that it covers everything. There is definitely not a specific person in which she is directly connected to them that it says in the book. But as you'll see, she's not really in the book. She's barely in it at all. So this is a book that doesn't focus on glamorizing the predator. It's a book that focuses on telling the stories of the victims and the survivors themselves. Anybody else? Question?
Talked a little bit just now about humor and how your friends have, or people who have been sexually assaulted, deal with situations like this with very dark humor. I know Nanette by Hannah Gatsby just came out that talks about that, and Carmen Esposito's amazing special Rape Jokes came out recently, and so I'm seeing a lot of, especially female comedians, kind of come forward and find humor in awful situations, especially like on shows like Dietland and things like that. So my question for you is, and you even read that section with the Twitter, the tweets that were funny. And so how do you find the humor? How did you choose to insert comedic moments in something that very well could not have had comedy in them?
Yeah, I've always found a morbidity in the world that I live in the entertainment business. I think just growing up as a child actor alone is so cruel and unfounded, and creates such a horrible relationship with the physical self and the body and the emotional self, and that I had to find humor in it. I had to learn how to find humor in being asked to lose 5 pounds to get a role. Like, that's fucking hilarious to me, that would matter, that 5 pounds would matter to somebody. So for me, I wouldn't say it was easy, but I felt like it was slightly more cathartic to write from those parts, as opposed to the ones who really had a hard time being able to express that clearly. But I do think that it is a real way for, I think, all of us to look at, it's interesting when it's permanent on the page like that, when tweets are permanent. And it's not just us going through our daily lives of like, oh, I'm just scrolling through it. I'm just like looking and, oh, this sounds like it's up my alley. I agree with this statement that's in this tweet. I'm going to quote retweet this and do the hashtag. Then I'm going to like go about my day. And I've done my work. I've done my work to help. But we haven't. And sometimes it also harms in the process of doing that. a small version of that, but even if you saw when Tessa Thompson, came out as she came out as pan, I think, and she basically, the media, even our own like liberal people, like the world that we love, took it and created this secondary story and said that she actually was with someone that she wasn't, and that was just based on people not reading the interview. Like people that, like journals we respect, papers that we respect, online magazines that we respect, took it and ran. And she had to come out and say, no, wait. Nobody read the actual interview. That's not what I said. That's a small example, I think, of a much larger systemic problem about how that really does focus in on this idea of fake news. And the fact that people it's so easy to absorb it. It's like, like philosophical fast food where we're just able to like grab it and go. We just eat it and go. And we don't ever stop to consider the ramifications or the truth. And I indict myself in this behavior constantly. I'll do it and go, why'd you do it? Why did you do it? What was the reaction? What was the reason behind that? So to me, when I look at it and when I look at anybody from Katy Perry to the Women's March, to anybody that we might know and love and respect and think are helping with what they're putting out into the world, I want to look at it and say, is it enough? Are we doing enough? Am I doing enough? Does that really help to change the culture from a systemic standpoint, from the endemic nature of it, from the problem that has existed forever? Is this enough? And I do think that everyone is exhausted. I'm exhausted. And the problem with that is that the other side is betting on our exhaustion. They're waiting, and they're waiting it out. And I feel that constantly. I feel the fact that some men have been accused, even as of recently, with some pretty horrific behavior, and they haven't been forced to step down. So you can already kind of see how the Me Too movement is starting to taper a little bit and sort of starting to be disregarded. So I'm highly aware of it, and I think it's important to address it for what it is and to try to find sometimes the way to do that and to get people engaged with that conversation is to make them laugh at the ridiculousness of it. Because sometimes just coming down like a battering ram all day long doesn't work. We've got to find different ways, I think, to communicate on some level. Thank you. Yeah. Maybe one more question, if anyone has one, and if not, we can just sign some books.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for being here.
I'd like to ask you about this thought of a void.
Thought of a void?
A void.
Mm-hmm.
VOID.
Mm-hmm.
And there needing to be something to fill a void. In the work that you've written and also in your experiences, how do you approach it when you find that maybe in relations with others you fill a void more than being there?
I hear you. So talking about voids, I think any one of us can see maybe where a piece of a conversation is missing. For example, even bringing up that talking about gray areas contributes to the problem, which I totally agree with. I think that any one of us can look at something in any conversation and say, hang on, this needs to be reframed. For me, it's always about looking into my own defensiveness within any conversation and being highly aware of it and being able to receive either criticism or conversation or finding space to be able to have more complex dialogues. Again, I go back to that word because I just think it's almost like a lost art in this world. I was in a restaurant today where literally every single person was on their phones, including people who were sitting together, sitting right across from each other. And I know that's something we all see and something we all participate in. So I think for me, sometimes it's a delicate balance between knowing when to speak on what I feel and what I see and knowing when to truly just shut the fuck up. And that's a real part of my life work. I think as it is for anybody in knowing the difference and knowing that your opinion is not always necessary in every single room. I think it's a really important thing to be able to speak from a place of knowledge, but to be able to listen from a place of openness and receptiveness. So that's what I have to say about voids. Thank you guys so much for coming. It means a lot. Thank you.